it is Spina Bifida Awareness Week, of course, and Spina Bifida Awareness Week this year is supported by Hollister Incorporated, so thank you to them for their support. And this week's an opportunity to help raise awareness of spina bifida, but we've also put together this programme of talks to really help you engage with some of the research that we've been doing and what our plans are going forward in terms of supporting you. So Awareness Week this year, particularly the live sessions, is very much themed around the survey results and what you told us you needed, what your main struggles are, and what information we can share with you. So hopefully this will change. So our 1,000 Voices survey was ran in 2 separate online cohorts over the last couple of years, and we had a fantastic response of about 1,082 responses that we could use. Some very keen people filled in the survey more than once, and so we had to exclude those from the data, but we got a fantastic response. And from what we learned, we found that there were a lot of our members that had a lot of health needs that sort of are potentially modifiable through lifestyle factors and what you do, what you eat. And one of those things was hypertension or high blood pressure, which is a risk factor for a number of different diseases, and extra strain is then placed on the heart and the other organs, including the brain, the kidneys and the eyes. And having spina bifida increases the risk of hypertension, potentially due to sort of the renal problems associated with some kinds of spina bifida. And this is because the kidneys are important regulators of blood pressure, but also it's potentially due to increased obesity, reduced activity, and potentially also the association with sleep apnea, which we've done a separate live session on previously. But the prevalence of hypertension in people with spina bifida between the ages of about 16 and 60 has previously been shown to be 21%, but that was in the USA, so we didn't really know what the prevalence was like here. We know that the prevalence of high blood pressure in the general population, sort of adult population in England, is about 26%. But from the results of our survey, we were able to see that about 33% of the people that responded, so about 1 in 3, had high blood pressure. And it was generally associated with increasing age. You can see on the graph on the right there, rising from about 6% of the 25 to 35-year-olds, and then reaching a maximum of about 51% in the over 61s. But most people were diagnosed with hypertension between the ages of about 36 and 50, and the average age for diagnosis was around 40. As you can see in the bottom graph there, that high blood pressure was more common in men, and that's something you also see in the general population. And also what you might see on the graph there in the yellow, this is showing the number of people that don't know or don't check their blood pressure, and overall that was about 5%, which means that there are potentially people that wouldn't know if they were getting high blood pressure, and so wouldn't then necessarily know to take whatever measures they need to protect themselves from that. And because high blood pressure is so preventable through lifestyle changes like diet, exercise, stopping smoking, then it's important that if you are one of the people that don't know their blood pressure, don't get it checked regularly, that you have a think about maybe monitoring that more regularly, either yourself or with your GP. Another facet that's sort of affected or can be quite responsive to exercise was balance. So balance is really important for stability and for mobility. And about 70% of the people that responded to the survey said their balance had gotten worse over time. And that trend was reflected when we looked at the different ages, and it showed that people that reported their balance got worse rose from about 32% of people aged 25 to 30, rising all the way up to between 80 and 94% of people aged 61 and over. And again, women were more likely than men to report increasing difficulties with balance. And so sort of physiotherapy is focusing on sort of core strength and working on balance, and things that work on things like coordination can be quite helpful for when worsening balance becomes an issue. And sort of potentially related to that is a lot of people reported that their mobility was changing over time, and most of those changes that were described referred to sort of a deteriorating mobility. And it was about 3/4 of all the people that responded to the survey said that their mobility had changed over time. And by the time we got to people in their 70s, I did expect 9 out of 10 had said that their mobility had changed over time. And in terms of upper body issues, this is something else where and actually this is an area where a lot of research is needed, because you can get upper body issues from overuse or from wrong use, or from not using them in the correct way. And you can also, as we'll see on the next slide, get issues as a result of bone loss as well. But upper body issues, again, was something that significantly affected a lot of our members. Only 31% said that they didn't have any issues at all, and 45% had 2 or more. So quite often, if you had shoulder pain, you might also have neck pain or difficulty using your hands. And you can see that that's something that affects a huge number of our members there as well. And we also wanted to look at whether having upper body issues was associated with using any particular types of mobility aids to get around. And interestingly, what we found was that there didn't seem to be one particular type that caused it more than others, but actually if you walk unaided, you're much less likely to have upper body issues. So it suggests that there's work to do in terms of sort of preparing the body for using mobility aids, and then ensuring that you are able to protect and preserve your upper body, whichever you're using, whether that's sticks or crutches, or a manual wheelchair. And what we also found when we asked about different kinds of bone and joint conditions, we found that just under 70% of respondents had some kind of bone or joint condition, either the ones listed here or some other ones as well. And one of the really standout ones there is if you look at osteoarthritis. So that's sort of characterised where you've got a lot of wear and tear in the joints, leading to loss of cartilage and a lot of swelling. And that wear and tear accumulates in all of us over a lifetime, but the rates that we're seeing of osteoarthritis in the results is a lot higher than you would see in the sort of wider population, where in the UK it's about 10% of all adults over 20, whereas we're seeing obviously 28% there. So it suggests that there's definitely an increased risk of arthritis there. And the other one that stands out as well is osteoporosis at the top there, which is a condition that revolves around loss of bone density and strength, and it's known to be associated particularly with age, and in women with being postmenopausal, which you lose the hormone estrogen that's important for keeping your bones hard and strong. And And also, the reason we were asking about this is that osteoporosis is known to be a risk factor where someone isn't weight bearing, so someone who uses a wheelchair all the time, or that is weight bears a lot less, is going to be more prone to osteoporosis, because they're not getting those impacts from weight bearing that help the bones to become dense. And what we found was that the prevalence of osteoporosis was significantly higher in across all respondents, but then also it looked, when we kind of broke it down by age as well, we found that the prevalence in males 50 and under was 7%, rising to 10%, and in that, compared to the general population, is sort of 4 or 5 times higher. And looking in women as well, where the prevalence is normally higher anyway, we found that actually 10% of women under 50 and 22% of women 51 and over were having osteoporosis. So actually, the data suggests that osteoporosis is not only raised across the whole population, but it's particularly raised in groups that you wouldn't normally check for, so in people under 50 and in males. So these are the kinds of issues that came up from our survey that made us realise, well, for a start, it made us realise that the sheer range of issues that our members are experiencing, but also that actually a lot of those things are potentially modifiable through diet and exercise. And so that's what today's stream is all about. So I'll just check and see if we've had any questions in the meantime. So it looks like we've had these are all questions. We've had some questions for Louise, so thank you, Sean, for your question. I'll pass that on to Louise, and I'm sure she'll be interested to get back to you. And looks like we've also got some viewers coming in from Australia, so that's fantastic.
Oh, hello.
So, hi to our Australian friends.
Yeah. What time's it out there?
I think it's ever so late in Australia.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So Jill and Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of neurophysiotherapy now, and how that can potentially help with some of those issues?
Yeah, we had Mike and I had a conversation quite recently about changing mobility, and Mike was telling me about some of the things that he had done that had improved his mobility and reduced his pain. So he's very, very kindly agreed to share some of those things with us. So yeah, Mike, can you just tell us a little bit about what you were experiencing?
Yeah, I was referred through, I see a neuro consultant at the Walton Centre in Liverpool. I mean, I live in Cheshire. And I was referred to, I've been referred over the years to many physiotherapists, and my personal experience is that they're not particularly aware of spina bifida as a condition. They're great for general sort of pulls, aches and these sorts of things, but as regards to specific problems I was having with the condition, they weren't really too aware of the condition really, and know much about it. So I was referred on to the neuro consultant and then my GP to a neuro physiotherapist that I hadn't been seen by one of these before. And I think the first point was, when I did see her, I was lucky that I had a telephone conversation with her because it was during the lockdown, but she was able to come out and visit me with the full PPE gear on. So I had 3 home visits from her. And straight away, I mean, when she walked through the door, she started talking to me. She knew an awful lot about spina bifida and sort of neuromuscular conditions. So that straight away gives you a bit more confidence that what she's going to be doing with you would work, or had have a chance of working. And so over the 3 visits, she watched me walk, she watched, worked for me what range of movements I had. And she was able to design some plan which enabled me to sort of, build up over several weeks, which had started to, not only in terms of stretching routines, which I wish I'd started a lot earlier. One of the points, I think one of the things you've sent out for Spina Bifida Awareness Week is the question about asking what you would have liked to have known when you were an awful lot younger. And I think one of the things I would have liked to have known is the aging process once you get to your sort of 40s, 50s. I'm 58 now, and I would have liked to have known 8, 9, 10 years ago pretty much what I know now, or aware of the changes that were going to occur. So she was able to put plans together for me, which is sort of stretching, building up muscle groups, which has had, I feel, a significant impact in the sort of 4 months since I first saw her. One of the things she eventually got me working on was this thing here, which I'll show you, which is just like you sit on it, really. And these are quite cheap. I think my wife ordered it me. I think they're less than 15, 20 pounds at most. And so something simple like that in terms of building up. You mentioned Jenny as part of your presentation about core strength. That. In terms of that's had a significant effect on me, just in terms of core strength. You get one at this and you sit on it and you think, well, that's not going to do much good. I sat on that for about 5 minutes. The following day I knew about it. I would certainly recommend, if you try something like this, that you sat next to something that you can grab hold of, because it is quite difficult just to keep your balance on that. And then from that, sort of extended activities from like being able to sit on it and put your hands on your head, or put your arms out, or twist, or I can't move my right leg really much, but I can my left. So the idea that I could sort of be stretching my left leg out and pulling it back and trying to keep my balance on this. And so using this every day, I've sort of built up I think improved balance, improved core strength, and developed muscle groups, which then probably compensate for some areas where I'm getting pain, which is therefore reduced pain, if you like. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I think the knock-on effects with that in terms of balance, my wife one of the first people to notice it, how much taller I seemed to be standing. And I think that was because I wasn't getting the pain in the back on the left-hand side, that I was able to stand taller through that. And it's things you notice, like I'm not in as much pain when I'm driving. I get out of the car, I get out of the bed, whereas I used to get out of bed after a night's sleep, and I don't feel that pain as much. Just general, the limited amount of walking I can do. Like going around, I just nipped to the supermarket this morning, so I can get around there okay. But I'm not as tired after that. And I think from what Jenny was saying before, the added, you sort of look at the other sort of outside advantages of that, in terms of blood pressure, in terms of obesity, in terms of these sorts of things. It probably has a bigger effect on you than you perhaps realise when you first start.
No, that's really, really.
Have I answered that? Is there any follow-on questions from that? Because from what you two, Jenny and Jill, can think of.
I think the standing taller, I think that's a really important point, Mike, because as you stand taller, it stretches out all your internal organs as well.
Yeah.
So
and the spinal cord.
Your bladder's going to have more space. Your bowel's going to have more space. And then I think that the less pain you're in, the more you move, and the more you move, the more active, the more active you are. And I think inactivity is probably one of the key points to the health of a lot of our members. Blood pressure, people being diagnosed at an average of 40 with high blood pressure, that's very young. That's much younger than the general population.
Two points, just other points I probably should make. I've mentioned there before about when she first came, and the fact that she seemed far more knowledgeable gave me more confidence in that what she was going to do with me was going to have an effect. I can't move my right leg anymore, even though that was the dominant leg when I was younger, and I was quite active when I was younger. And I can't lift it off the floor anymore. And I'd seen physiotherapists in the past few years who've said to me, well, that's because your hip flexors aren't working and they won't work again. She came in and within a few minutes she said, I don't agree with that. She said, I think they will work. And she did manage, if she got me lying on my back and my leg in a certain position, that they would work. Now, not working to the extent of how they were 20, 30 years ago, but there was certainly an improvement that she was then able to give me exercises that I could do with my wife to get those working a little bit better and a little bit better. And the knock-on effect of that was that I go to the gym that I mentioned before, and one thing I never could have used, that I could have used 20 years ago, was an exercise bike, because I just can't physically push with that right leg. Now, so when I went back up after they opened again with the COVID, they've got one of these exercise bikes that you usually use with your arms, which I use all the time, but you also use for your legs, but it's got the back support, so you're sat back, so you're more at a sort of that sort of angle. And I was able to use that. Now, not much, and I mean, the first time I did it, I limited myself to sort of 20 turns. And so I did that a few times. Then I went once and I did too much and I could barely walk for 2 days. So again, it's making sure you sort of don't overdo it. It's like the same with this. You would think you couldn't overdo that, but you can. And so that's, little things like that. And then it gives you the confidence, well, perhaps I can start to improve. And if my attitude towards it has been, well, if I can improve 15%, that's taken me back perhaps 5 years where I was physically. And that's a big bonus. The other thing that she suggested was that I consider acupuncture for pain. So again, because I'd had the success with what she was doing, I did take her up, and sort of once the COVID restrictions started to relent a little bit, I looked up an acupuncturist. That's the correct word. Again, I did spend a fair bit of time researching that because I wanted somebody with plenty of experience and so forth, and with what I thought were significant qualifications. So I've been seeing this lady I've had 4 sessions with her. And again, it's an eye-opener of how they look at it, because she just associated all the problems I've got down, my pain on my left-hand side, with blocked energy channels on the right side. So she just sticks a load of needles on the right-hand side. And again, I feel that, coupled with the exercise, has had a significant effect.
That's good. I think that's really important. I think it's finding something that works for you.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and keeping your mind open, I think, to alternatives. We don't necessarily know how acupuncture works. We don't necessarily know how Reiki works.
No.
But give it a go. If it works for you, it works. And I think a lot of people, especially with pain, a lot of people have found that hypnotherapy is something very, very, very useful indeed. So just keep an open mind, I think. And that aspect of finding a professional who knows about your condition to actually give you specific advice, I think it's so important. Nothing worse than going and seeing somebody and they're saying, well, I don't know, spina bifida, remind me what that is. It's not very inspiring.
And then it's not their fault, Jill, because they've not been trained in that sort of field.
I think so. I think it's finding your specialities and stuff. And I think you only got three sessions, wasn't it, with the National Health Service? But I think you've opted to invest.
She did say, she was very good with me. She does run a private practice. Now, I haven't seen her again since, but I will go and see her privately. But she said to me, there's no point coming to see me every, in the next month, 2 months, because I've given you all I can do at the moment. What she may be able to do is, if I work hard on what she's given me, that in 2 months, 3 months time, I go and see her for a session. then she may be able to give me a different range of exercises to build upon what I've already done.
Yeah. It's really, really nice to know sort of like this, you know, those benefits to it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
Not a pleasure. Is there any questions or?
Yeah. Doesn't look like
I'm sure they'll come.
Yeah, I think people tend to put all the questions in right at the end, and sort of listen to all we're presenting to begin with, and then pop the questions at the end. But we're happy to answer questions as we go along. So if you do have any questions for either the health team or for Mike, do just pop them in the comments, and we'll keep an eye out for them. But otherwise, one of the things we wanted to talk about today is sort of the nutrition side of things, because watching what you eat is an important way for managing your weight, and keeping your weight at a healthy level is one of the most important things you can do for your health, because being overweight not only puts a strain on your heart, but also on your joints, and then it increases your risk also of things like diabetes and some different cancers. And when it comes to your weight, that's essentially just a balance of the energy going in through food and drink and the energy going out through moving, thinking, doing. And exercise is an important part of that balance as well. And the way that we measure energy is through calories. So when we eat and drink more calories than we use, we then store that energy, that excess energy, as body fat. And if we keep consuming more calories than we use over time, then you can put on weight. So a sort of typical male will need around 2,500 calories a day to maintain his body weight, and the average female will need a bit less, around 2,000 calories. But if you have spina bifida, it's likely that you'll need fewer calories than those guidelines. And this is partly because of reduced size and reduced use of the large muscles in your legs, that in an ambulant person will use up a lot of energy. And then having and using less muscle means that fewer calories are needed to maintain a healthy weight. And so for people with lumbar lesions who use a wheelchair full time, the need for calories might be really quite a lot less than a non-disabled person, maybe even a third or even half less. So some people have found the support of slimming groups helpful, but you don't necessarily need to join those or to pay out for them. A lot of people can get great results from eating a little bit less overall, eating less sugar or fatty foods, and then moving a bit more, and still get some great results. So if you do want or need to lose weight, it's important to do so carefully, just to make sure that you don't lose too much too fast, and make sure that you don't end up deficient in important nutrients like vitamins and minerals. So a sort of sensible weight loss target to aim for would be between half a pound and 2 pounds, which is about quarter of a kilogram to 1 kilogram a week, until you reach a weight that you're happy with. And a healthy diet combined with regular physical activity is the best way to achieve and maintain a healthy weight. It's also worth noting that it's quite hard to get everything you need to feel well and energetic and have good bowels if you don't eat vegetables. So all of the tips that we'll share on sort of eating a healthy, balanced diet revolve around eating a lot of vegetables, and I know that can be tricky, but hopefully you'll see it's sort of about progress, not perfection. We're not asking you to eat nothing but salad forever, but just reducing the amount of sugar, reducing the amount of added fat wherever you can. And I'll share the NHS Eat Well guide has got some really nice information about the basics of eating a healthy, balanced diet. But a lot of the tips can be summarised as just a few points. So trying to make sure that you eat at least 5 portions of a real range of fruits and vegetables every day, including one portion, and one portion is about the size of your fist after cooking, of starchy carbohydrates in every meal. So that's your potatoes, your bread, your rice or pasta. Choosing whole grain wherever you can, and versions with less added sugar or fat wherever possible, including some dairy or dairy alternatives like soya milks, including protein, so beans, pulses, eggs, meat and fish, and one portion of oily fish a week is recommended, particularly for brain function. So using small amounts of unsaturated oils and fats, things like sunflower and olive oil. Drinking plenty of fluids, that's particularly important, as you've also got hydrocephalus, and 6 to 8 cups or glasses throughout the day is sort of the recommended amount. But also having treats occasionally, so having a little of what you fancy is important, but try to have foods that are very high in fat, salt and sugar less often, or have them in smaller amounts. And also being a bit careful with alcohol, because it can be quite high in calories and also can get you snacking. I know that planning ahead can be a fair bit more difficult for some people with spina bifida, so you might not think about food until you're hungry, when it's sort of getting late to start preparing food, and then it's all too easy to then phone for a takeaway. And every now and again that's absolutely fine, but if you're doing that every day, that can lead to weight gain and sort of nutritional deficiencies, because it's not very healthful food. So if you do find it hard to plan, it's probably worth talking through with someone else the foods that you eat, and what can be cooked quickly without a lot of effort. Things like frozen veg, ready prepared rice are really good, because there's been some sort of snobbery around kind of frozen veg and thinking, oh, that's not as good as fresh, but actually it's frozen at the point when it is fresh, so it's still absolutely packed with vitamins, and it's much more convenient, and it's already pre-prepared, so it's a lot easier to use. Getting a shopping list and sticking to it, that's a good way, and not shopping when you're hungry is always worth doing, because you're less tempted to get all the kind of high calorie snacks and things. And another really great tip is to delete your apps like Just Eat and Delivery from your phone, so that you're much less tempted. And actually, sometimes with the time it takes for a delivery to come, you can have prepared a nice quick one-pot meal in that time anyway, so you haven't actually saved time, but you've actually got something that's a little bit better for you. And the other thing we mentioned as well as diet is exercise, so getting active. Physical activity is a really good way to help maintain a healthy weight, but it's also important for your general health and well-being. And it's been said that if exercise was a pill, it would be one of the most cost-effective drugs ever invented, because the benefits are so huge. And whatever your age or ability, there's great evidence to show that being active can help you to be healthier and happier. And then it's just a case of kind of knowing how much to do. So in an ideal situation, you'd be doing at least 150 minutes of aerobic activity every week. So aerobic exercise is anything that raises your heart rate, makes you out of breath, or causes you to break a sweat. And then doing strength exercises on 2 or more days a week. But if you're new to exercise, don't worry about doing all of that right away. If you start slowly and then build up, and sort of aim to eventually get to a program that's something along those lines. Obviously, using a wheelchair can make it more difficult to do aerobic activity that raises your heart rate. And moving a wheelchair can also put extra pressure on your muscles and joints in the upper body, making strains or other injuries more likely. And so that's where muscle strengthening exercise becomes really important, because that can help you manage your wheelchair in your daily life, but also avoid those kinds of injuries if you do push it a bit harder when you're doing your aerobic exercises. And resistance bands are a really good way and a cheap way to do strength training exercises at home. And there are always options for different activities and sports, whatever your physical abilities might be. So just trying different things to find something you enjoy, you'll be much more likely to stick at it if you can have fun doing it, or if it's at least something you can tolerate. Obviously, ordinarily there would be a lot more adaptive sports more widely available, but obviously coronavirus has really impacted on what we can all get out and do. So it's worth remembering that physical activity doesn't have to mean going out to the gym or doing a competitive team sport. They are great options, but if that's something you would normally do and you're now not getting that exercise because coronavirus has got in the way, it might be time to start thinking about different ways to get active. And there are lots of things that you can do in and around your home. So Willpower are a really good charity organisation. They've got lots of information to help wheelchair users get involved in sport, and I can share some links to their content in the comments. We've got a seated exercise video that we ran earlier in the year, and again I'll share that in the comments, and that could be a way to get you started. And the NHS website again has got lots of great information and activity ideas on being more active with a disability. So we'll just check the comments again and see.
Can I just say something about the activity that you raised there, Jenny? Was that
actually
going to the gym, they were quite good in terms of speaking to the gym instructors about activities that would sort of burn calories more effectively than others. I'm just thinking about using a bike, again, using an arm bike, but doing perhaps a minute quick, a minute slow, minute quick, minute slow, burns far more calories than just going the same pace. So they can offer, a lot of advice that's safe as well in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
It's brilliant. It sounds like you've got a really good gym if they're able to kind of personalize it for you rather than just sort of giving you the same information.
Well, I did ask. I just asked, you see, so I just went in, what's the best for this sort of thing. So, and I found then that they're only too willing to help.
Oh, that's brilliant.
No, that
you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, yeah.
I think that the point that Jenny made about being, feeling happier, exercise, apart from your physical benefits and reducing pain and keeping your weight under control, actually fantastic for your mental well-being. It really does give you a lift. And if you can exercise outdoors, even for a short period of time, you get benefits from that as well, in terms of kind of your day routine, sleeping better. So there's like huge benefits, and sometimes just changing one thing in your life can then have knock-on effects for so many other areas. If you're in less pain, you're likely to sleep a bit better, and sleeping better makes everything a little bit better. Just changing one thing can bring huge benefits as well. So always worth bearing in mind. Do we have questions?
We have more comments than questions, really. From Nigel saying that he's found that nobody seems to be interested in his health as he's getting older, now 59, and all anyone wants to do is fill me with pills, and feeling kind of quite sort of let down and disengaged from the health service and neglected was really sadly something that we saw a lot of in our survey results. So you're certainly sadly not alone with feeling that way, Nigel, but hopefully some of the work that we're going to be doing as a result of those survey results, trying to engage more with professionals help them to understand the particular needs of aging with spina bifida, and the different kind of preventative actions that can be taken to try and help some of those issues. Hopefully that's the sort of thing that will benefit everyone. And I don't know if you are a member, but if you are, we've produced and sent out for Spina Bifida Awareness Week a letter to GPs. And I know I'm sort of jumping the gun a bit talking about that now, because we've got a whole session on it on Friday. But in that, it's about raising awareness with your GP of some of the health issues and needs that you have. And I don't know if it is your GP that you've been having issues with, but that's potentially a way to get that conversation started. And you hopefully will be able to. You could potentially share the survey results with them as well, and sort of really try and advocate for the issues. And if you don't want pills, if there's other things that you want, to maybe ask for those as well. So if you think, for example, physiotherapy is something that you would benefit from, potentially talking about a referral for that rather than sort of pain medication. It's very difficult to sort of come on without a bit more information. But if you do want to talk to either someone on the health team more privately, I'll put the Shine contact details in the comments as well for you there.
I think unfortunately, I think that is the way that the NHS is geared up. But one of the things it might be worth is having a look to see what the council offer, because the councils are now in charge of public health, and a lot of them have initiatives that sort of like walking clubs or exercise, or just groups of people to come together to improve their health in other non-pill ways. There's absolutely no incentive at all for GPs to engage in anything other than pill giving for people's health. Some of them are really good, and they will provide services, and sometimes the practice nurses will get people together to talk about health and food. But it's the system. It's not going to be your GP, it's going to be the system. And it might be that the public health from your council might be a better option, or just have a look into what is there something else that I can be doing to improve my health. And just as a family, we found exactly the same thing. You get a diagnosis, there's right, okay, well, what else can we do? Like there's pills, or or there's something else. But the something else is something that you have to find out often for yourself. Very, very difficult. I think this is one of the reasons why we're running these sessions, really, because GPs haven't got all the answers, and it's a very, very stretched service. With or without a pandemic, it's a very stretched service that doesn't really lend itself to prevention or promotion of health. It's a service that will treat sick people, but it won't make people healthier necessarily, if that makes any sense at all, Nigel. So
yeah, it sounds like a lot of the members saying they can really relate to what's said. So it's certainly it isn't just you, and it's not just your GP. It's unfortunately, like Jill's saying, it's sort of a service wide issue.
System. Yeah, it's the system, unfortunately. Yeah, and
We've got someone, Alison, is saying that she's got a set of weights and exercise bands that they use at home to keep moving. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's the point Jason's making about nutrition. Especially we've talked a little bit about being overweight and keeping that under control. But some of our members weigh less than is ideal, and it's actually making sure you're getting enough. If you've got a small appetite, particularly, making sure that what you do eat is packed full of protein and vitamins and as much goodness as you can get as well. And sometimes supplements, like the 40 sips, sometimes supplements will help that, and will help things like your skin and tissue healing. Yeah, great from Alison, having a set of weights and exercise bands to use at how to keep yourselves moving. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's keeping moving and doing some, things that you can do a few times a day will be better than a once a fortnight at the gym.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, again, from the survey results, obviously also just from some of the comments there, like Jason's, about how much everything connects to everything else. So your mobility is linked to your skin, healing is linked to what you eat, and all of the, almost everything, all of the issues that sort of come along with the sort of direct effects of spina bifida linked to how much you move, what you eat, and sleep as well. Sleep is the other one. All of these things all kind of linked together, and so it's not about being perfect and getting everything right, but if you can start making small changes in all these areas, there are a lot of other areas that link to that you'll see benefits in. So if you start doing a little bit more exercise, it's not just that you'll lose a bit of weight, you may also sleep better, you might also feel a bit happier, and if you eat better, again, there's the weight effect, but you've also got your bone health might improve, your tissue healing might improve. So all of these things kind of work together, and so it's quite easy to get quite a lot of benefit from quite small changes.
Yeah, and sugary food will make you feel tired. After that little hit wears off, it will make you tired, and when you're tired, you don't want to do the same things and put the same kind of efforts in. So I think have a look at the whole thing. The other thing I think is about wheelchairs, because a lot of people are using wheelchairs that are far too heavy and far too cumbersome, and then that gets uncomfortable. Your wheelchair should be something that empowers you and lets you go and do the things you want to do. It shouldn't become a barrier on its own. So I think if there's anything about your equipment, go to wheelchair services, or see what's available with schemes. They're expensive. They are really expensive, but if that is going to help you to maintain your long-term health and well-being and cut down on your pain, it might just be one of the things. Find out to what extent your service will support you to get something appropriate that you can move. But some of them is just so, the wheelchairs are so heavy, and that's extra to push in addition to yourself. It shouldn't be a barrier.